If people are dieting now more than ever before, then why are nearly 1 in 3 American adults overweight? Dr. Gundry, who's helped thousands lose weight and feel younger and healthier than ever, says most people are not getting enough fat-burning MCTs from their food. MCTs are a special kind of compound that instead of turning into fat when you consume it, turns into ketones, which is a chemical that breaks down the excess fat in your body. So, by getting more MCTs in your diet, you essentially flip a switch that puts your body in caloric bypass mode, which can flush out excess fat and calories. And he's created an easy way for you to activate caloric bypass right at home. It's called MCT Wellness. This powerful blend of fat-flushing MCT powders and antioxidant-rich polyphenols is designed to help you unlock your body's fat-burning, energy-producing potential. What's even better is that it's a delicious drink. I love how incredible it tastes. All you do is add a scoop to water, enjoy, and watch as you start feeling slimmer and more energized. So, if you want to experience a quick, easy, and effective way to melt pounds fast, go to GundryMD.com/energy and order right now to get up to 53% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's GUNDRYMD.com/energy.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
The following podcast may contain discussions supported by science that may be considered dangerous to some listeners and conspiracy theorists. Discretion is advised.
The 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by Lucky Bastard Distillers, Saskatchewan's premier distillery, and by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, brewed in the heart of Regina. Welcome to the 3 Down Greencast. You are listening to the internet's only Don't Sign a Running Back podcast. I am Joel Gasson with John Fraser as usual, and we have plenty to discuss as the what's been dubbed by many the Ed Hervey negotiation window has now officially opened in the CFL. So
I love that name.
Yeah, it's great. Illegal tampering window, I think, what do they actually call it? Something free agent conversation window or some bullshit is what they actually call it.
Free agency communication window.
Right. That's what the technical term is, but only people actually associated with the league call it that. Everyone else kind of calls it mostly the legal tampering window, but this Ed Hervey one is really sticking pretty well in my mind.
That's what we're going with from here on out.
So we will be talking a little bit about free agency, sort of maybe who the Riders should and shouldn't target, talk about some of the names they've re-signed, and it's kind of overall big picture of where the next few weeks may lead for this team, because I think it's going to be pretty interesting with a brand new coach and sort of a new philosophy in place, and we'll kind of start to see that take shape over the next month or so.
Yes.
Before we get into that, though, because I had to make sure that John had one more thing to do this week, we decided to record this on here Sunday evening just to make sure Lacey's really mad at you. Because you've had one of the busiest weeks I can ever remember you having since we've been friends for the last, 15 years or so.
Yes. I was a part of the Tankard Planning Committee here in Saskatoon. So starting last Sunday, I was at the Nutana Curling Club Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I was there most of the day Wednesday. That was my only day off from ends this week. I was there Wednesday night. Yeah, of course. You got it out of the way. under 2 minutes. Just like our lucky bastard friend Bryce Perkins. Bryce and I, we were hanging out a bunch this weekend, which I will soon get into. We were talking about how I can plug it here, but can't mention it on the pregame show for the Saskatchewan Rush. So the ends plug out of the way early. So then Thursday, and you have to remember, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I still worked my full-time job at ends. Thursday was at the curling club that night. Friday was not at the curling club because I was presenting the team and athlete of the year at this Kinsman Sports Celebrity Dinner. Saturday, I worked at Ends, then worked a rush game for the Bull and TSN. And then today, I got up at about 12, or not, got out of the house at about 12 and went to do some stuff at the Tankard, took part in the closing ceremonies of the Tankard final, helped tear down the Tankard until finally I was like, okay, I got to go home. Mm-hmm. I don't know if my kids remember. Like, normally, like, and I think any parent can relate, mom is almost always the favorite, but like, even with Maya, I've been the favorite when I've been home recently, so that's how you know I've been out of the house a lot. So, no, it's been a busy week. It's been fun.
I just want to say before we move on, the committee, everyone there, even you, did a great job with the Tankard up in Saskatoon. Jenny was, we were watching a little bit of it, and she was surprised to see that that was the Nutana Curling Club, not an arena. So,
right. And that's actually, it was, that's what the eventual champion Mike McEwen said in one of his first interviews. And having some history with Mike, you know, hanging out with him through the many years.
And yelling at him from across the rink and at the SaskTel Center up there in Saskatoon.
With everybody hearing, including Mike, which leads, I'll quickly tell that story. But hanging out with Mike, and he was saying, he's like, when we heard it was going to a club, we were a little worried, and then we showed up here on Tuesday, and he's like, it was just incredible. So I was much quieter with my fucking A mic this time. I was helping out the local media to get the curlers over for interviews and stuff like that, and I walked up to Mike and gave him a bro hug and said, fucking A mic. I'm like, that's a little bit quieter than last time, and we both broke out laughing, thinking, yeah, no, that is.
If you didn't notice, yes, Mike McEwen unsurprisingly won the SaskTel Men's Tankard and will be representing Saskatchewan at the Briar.
Yeah, hometown Briar. Everyone's going to be behind him. And you know what? Like, I made the joke on Twitter today as we go into 8M Nation Talk. Both him and the Ryland Kleider team are both just great guys, great people, always a smile, meeting with fans, everything. And going back to even his time with the Hilltops, he was a wide receiver and kicker, is seeing Ryland Kleider make it to the provincial final. Like, that's another name to watch here in Saskatchewan. Heartbroken for the guy. I'll give him all the credit in the world. He stood on the ice and watched the trophy ceremony. I know that can be hard to do. Stood there with his dad and coach. So nothing but good things for Kleider, the old girl, as we call him. Small world, Ryder tie-in, Jorgen Huse's brother-in-law, actually, too. So, a crazy-ass week. But the Kinsman dinner, I will say, if anybody was there, for our 7 listeners, if anybody was there, Corey Mace, I know the highlight was Jose Bautista was great. Jose Barrios, a little tough to understand, but he was great. Buck Martinez, JB Campbell, just outstanding time. The Kinsmen put on such a great event. But Corey Mace kind of stole the show a bit. In the sense that Britt Dort was up there with Jorgen Hughes and Corey Mace, and Britt did a fantastic job with those two guys. And Corey, just the energy, the passion, and wanting to give back, and talking about how this province needs wins and how he wants to bring it here. Like, I've seen a lot of
the Bomber players. Fan was ready to run through a wall.
Yeah, 100%. I was sitting here going, shit, fewer people are going to listen to our podcast when he's in charge because they're going to win games again.
Yeah.
Because, of course, as we've often talked about, there's a direct correlation. But, no, busy-ass week. Lots of fun. Got to say fucking A Mike. I'm much quieter this time. And wildly and thoroughly impressed by Corey Mace. And for those asking, no, I did not just hang out by Craig Reynolds the entire night.
Yeah, so this is obviously a topic that we do have to get into, and we can tie it into a little bit further, because at the Kinsman Sports Center in Saskatoon, you ran into a gentleman there who we believe, not through any source seen or any sort of knowledge of any situation, just a hunch based on some previous experience.
Yes.
Maybe he's at least the clubhouse leader, you would think, for the now vacant Rider play-by-play job.
All jokes aside, I'd love to have that job.
Yes.
Like,
as much as it would end this podcast and my life would be actually far easier. In a way, it would still be sad, because I've talked about this a little bit with some people, and they've thrown out some names of some people maybe I could do this with, and I was like, honestly, and not to sound too sappy, I don't think I want to do this with anyone else. So,
Aw. Well,
because I mean,
thanks.
Other than maybe Dan Plaster, I don't think anyone else quite understands what we're doing as well as you do. So,
thank you. And Plaster's too smart too, so there's also that. No, I would love to have the job.
Yep.
I don't think I'm an inside candidate. Like let's call a spade here. It's a joke. No, it's not that a joke that I'm not a serious candidate. I don't know. I like joking about it. But the person, when asked, people have been asking me, who do you think should it be? And to me, it should 1,000,000% be Dave Thomas. Current CJWW morning host. If you've never heard him do play-by, you've probably heard him do Canada West play-by-play. Yep. Former voice of the Huskies. And how do I put this? Because we've both decided that I don't want to dwell and talk about the old guy too much. Kind of like we don't talk about the brewery that should not be named. It should be the play-by-play guy who should not be named.
The best way, I think, is to kind of riff off a little bit what the Piffles guys said earlier in this week on their episode. I think Greg, Alex, and Saf put it well. Despite what we may have thought about how Michael Ball got the job or whether he deserved the job, we were hoping, I think a lot of us, that he would kind of put all that behind him and find a way to present himself professionally and make it work. Well, I would love to have been proven wrong and everything was smooth sailing, everything was fine, and then it just becomes an afterthought, and frankly, the radio play-by-play guy doesn't really change my life all that much, so I don't care. In the end of the day, I think enough just happened to sort of paraphrase a guy who I also don't want to quote anymore, because he said something about Bret Hart once, and we don't really want to talk about this guy either. Ballsy pretty much only has himself to blame in the situation. Yeah,
I would say when you go on a 15-minute show opening rant about a bunch of meatballs in the basement, that's not a great look. So I think another
like if you want to get into like some of the stuff he said on the air about the league is enough to get pretty much any play-by-play guy out the door.
And
like there is a place, and most people expect local radio guys to be homers. Lord knows Rod Peterson was there, but there's a line, right? And there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it properly, and that just didn't happen.
Well, you'd never openly hear Rod call out the refs. And as somebody that does work for a professional league doing commentary, that's actually funny. I actually just had to clear my throat. But I we're constantly told by the National Lacrosse League, even though we're home broadcasters, what we can and can't say.
Yeah.
Right? I can question a call. I can say I don't agree with a call. I can't sit there on a broadcast and go, he blew that. These refs are terrible. What a Bush League thing. I can't, nor would I ever do that, nor would I ever go out and call it the league for, the NLL to me has less warts than ever before, but I'm not going to go on a broadcast on their main broadcast partner, any broadcast, and say, yeah, hey, the league did this and they suck. For one, they don't, but for two, you're right. There's a time and a place. There's your sports show. There's this podcast. There's even, hell, we have a post-game show after Rush games on 92.9 The Bull where we can say a little bit more because we're on a local radio station and not, being broadcast through the league or being judged. So to me, you have to do that stuff. It's part of the gig, right? So I know, and again, the whole thing is if you listen to the very small faction of ballsy supporters that are out there saying, oh, this was Reynolds, this was who, this was everybody. I think reading riderfans.com, which I think the only time I've ever seen
I would not recommend normally, no.
No, but it's hilarious that an entire thread, a 32-page thread, and somebody posted and said, is this the only time we've all agreed on something? That it's best that he no longer does the games for a long list of reasons. So I'm not here to dance on his grave. What I am here to do is I think you just had, and this is another reason why I would say that Dave should be the guy. And to me, I'd be floored if he wasn't. Like, unless you're going to go get a Tim McAuliffe, I think it should be a Dave Thomas, right? Yeah. And again, Dave,
it feels very classic sort of, they do it in coaching all the time where you hire the opposite of your ex, right?
Well, and that's exactly it. Dave Thomas is, and I've heard Ballsy's work ethic is great. some of the things he'd post about handwriting. And anyways, I have my own thoughts on that. But I've worked with Dave Thomas, and I can tell you that, Dave Thomas is not volatile on social media. He calls a great game. Like, if you go back, I don't know where you'd find him, but the Canada West football games we were doing between Darren DuPont, Justin Dunk, and Dave Thomas, and even Ray Morrison, and Dustin Nielsen doing something, come on, there's talent there, right? So I think Dave is one of the hardest working guys you'll ever meet, one of the most humble guys you'll ever meet, and just oozes so much talent. And I hope it's Dave. If I had to say, I would say it should be Dave. And, if you want to go from volatility on social media, Dave's not your guy. You're right. It is the opposite of your ex. So fun story. Mm-hmm. He actually is. So I was going to make a joke about, it'll be nice to have a play-by-play guy that hasn't blocked us.
Yeah.
But oh God, how do I do this without getting in trouble from the National Lacrosse League? The old regime had pulled Dave and Casey Guerin off of the finals broadcast and brought in, and it wasn't like they were getting pulled for national. They got pulled by their own guys, and I got a little spicy about it because I thought and especially two guys that I like. I think the Rush have had a lot of fantastic play-by-play guys, and Dave Thomas, it was one of them, and him and Casey were great together, and for them not to get the opportunity to call the game was bullshit. So, so Dave had to block me to basically show that he didn't agree with me and my thoughts. So I saw Dave at a Hilltops game, and I kind of poked him. I'm like, you realize you still have me blocked from that National Lacrosse League thing? He's like, oh, shit. Yeah, no problem. It's done. You're fine. But, yeah, Dave Thomas had blocked me. So I thought, I'm like, okay, this is going to be oh, well, yeah, here's a joke now. Now I can lead into the story of Dave Thomas accidentally blocking me for 5 years longer than he ever thought he would have. So... but now I can report we're unblocked by Dave, and if it's Dave, love to have him on the program. But I think it should be. I know reading, lots of people are cheering for our friend Jamie Nye. Jamie's a great voice. Jamie's so talented, but you want a play-by-play voice there, and Jamie's happy where it's at. And actually, I threw the name out, Darren DuPont. He was here for the Tankard. Darren lives in Toronto now, so I don't know if that would be one that if he'd come back. But it just seems Dave seems to be the natural fit. But one name that DuPont threw out there, him and I were having a conversation on this, and I was bugging him. I'm like, oh, come on, it should be you. And he's like, no, it should be you. I'm like, no, it should be you. It should be you.
No, you hang up. No, you
hang up. No, you be the Riders play-by-play voice. No, you be the Riders play-by-play voice. One name DuPont threw out there that I would love to see, Tim McAuliffe. I don't know if anybody would ever have the budget to pull that off the Riders or CKRM.
It would have to be... It would definitely have to be not a Harvard-paid position, I would say. And so we obviously don't know what the actual structure of this is going forward. Even in terms of what the sports cage is going to look like is still up in the air right now in terms of... I guess we'll find out maybe more on the 12th, but right now it's all kind of cloudy and no one really knows. But I mean, Tim would be incredible, but I would be stunned.
Oh yeah. The money it would take to get Tim out of Toronto would be you might as well round up everybody that bought a Riders share back in the old telethon days and sell those shares back to the club. Then they could bring in Tim McAuliffe.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you
Harvard's not paying that bill, I can tell you that much. So.
Oh no, but if you want a home run big name,
yeah,
there's the one. I think if you want to go the opposite,
I still would be surprised, but I mean, I guess it depends on how disgruntled he may feel about his basic Sportsnet Central host job now.
Well, and that was the conversation that Darren and I had, and I've had with others, that you go from basically the highest rated talk show that became your baby, that you got to do your own thing, and Tim is so good at it, to hey, here you are in the morning repeat on Connected that nobody watches anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, we all if you still PVR a highlight show, I still do. I still PVR SC with Jay Onright. I like Jay. I like when he's breaking down football. I like Luke Wilson a lot. Davis Sanchez, no, I don't. Again, I'm really running afoul of my friends here at TSN on this one, I think. But I like Luke more than I like Davis on air. I've never met Davis, but I know I like Luke on air and got to chat with Jay yesterday and had nothing but great things to say about Luke. So that's the one I PVR, right? So I don't know. I flipped it on the other day and I'm like, oh, Tim's on in the mornings now? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, who's watching in the morning? So who knows?
Yeah. One name we're pretty sure it's not going to be is Daniela, because she just got that gig out with the PWHL, and I would be surprised.
Oh, I would be floored. That's the
not
thing.
That she's not good enough and not deserving of it. She most certainly is, but she's in a good spot now. So,
but that's kind of why I'm upset it took this long. We all knew what Ball was after year one. And the fact that the Riders brought in Daniela to essentially do the jobs that they wanted the play-by-play person to do was like, okay, good. This is her shot, right? And then for her to take this amazing opportunity with the PWHL and meet her guy and move out to Toronto, and it's like, okay, what if this would have happened a year ago, right? You knew you had a cancer in that broadcast booth. And if you would have got rid of it a year ago, we're probably congratulating Daniela, right? So I'm glad she got that gig. That's a great gig for her. It's perfect for her. Her hockey call's so good. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like, it's going to be good. But I'm with you. I think whoever it's going to be is going to be the exact opposite of Michael Ball, and that just leads me. That leads me back to, if you want to hire somebody on a reasonable budget that has that level of talent, it's Dave Thomas. Yeah. If you want to hire the name, because this is going to sound bananas land too, because you know the esteem I hold Tim McAuliffe in. Mm-hmm. I think Dave Thomas is as talented as Tim McAuliffe. I do.
Could be. Yeah.
His ability, they both have similar interview styles. They both have ways to make guests feel comfortable. The calls are very good, so the love of football is there. So that's my spicy meatball take here for this podcast, that a guy I used to work with is as talented as Tim McAuliffe.
Anyways, yeah, whoever it ends up being, they may appear on this program, and we may talk to Derek Taylor again one day. Who knows?
Yeah, if we can't. If it's like McAuliffe and we can't get him on the program, do we just have DT on to talk about how good McAuliffe is as a hire or something like that?
Maybe.
Why are so many dogs suffering from health issues? Actress Katherine Heigl, who's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation, says she's seeing more issues with dogs' joints, odors, and health than ever before. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to support any dog's health: their food. So she decided to create something she could actually feel good about feeding her dogs. It's called Superfood Complete. Superfood Complete is made with over 30 of the healthiest ingredients on the planet, including several superfoods vital to your dog's health. Badlands Ranch also sponsors the Jason Debus Heigl Foundation, which has helped rescue thousands of dogs and place them in loving homes. Dogs across America are trying this food and experiencing amazing health benefits. Go to badlandsranch.com/save50 and order right now to get up to 50% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want your dog to experience all these incredible things, go to badlandsranch.com/save50 today. If people are dieting now more than ever before, then why are nearly 1 in 3 American adults overweight? Dr. Gundry, who's helped thousands lose weight and feel younger and healthier than ever, says most people are not getting enough fat-burning MCTs from their food. MCTs are a special kind of compound that, instead of turning into fat when you consume it, turns into ketones, which is a chemical that breaks down the excess fat in your body. So, by getting more MCTs in your diet, you essentially flip a switch that puts your body in caloric bypass mode, which can flush out excess fat and calories. And he's created an easy way for you to activate caloric bypass right at home. It's called MCT Wellness. This powerful blend of fat-flushing MCT powders and antioxidant-rich polyphenols is designed to help you unlock your body's fat-burning, energy-producing potential. What's even better is that it's a delicious drink. I love how incredible it tastes. All you do is add a scoop to water, enjoy, and watch as you start feeling slimmer and more energized. So, if you want to experience a quick, easy, and effective way to melt pounds fast, go to CountryMD.com/energy and order right now to get up to 53% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's GUNDRYMD.com/energy.
So yeah, free agency, of course, right around the corner. The Ed Hervey window is now open. We'll get into all that and more. But finally, about 45 minutes into this podcast, John, for the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, what is in the glass this week?
In the glass this week, I had to stop on my way back from the Nutana at a liquor store. I picked up the Blackbridge Uno IPA. It is delightful. It's got just about 6% booze in it, and it is exactly what I need after this week. So, yeah, Uno IPA, delicious, packs some punch. Highly recommend it. It comes out in a limited run, so it's out right now. I can sell
its sister beer, the double IPA, is also back now. So.
Oh, I didn't see any doubles. It seems like the liquor store.
It's making its way out. There maybe hasn't quite gotten that far yet, but it is out. So
I think they're closing down the liquor store and market mall here in Saskatoon, Urban Cellars, because there was like nothing on the shelves. It was kind of weird, but they had Uno, which was awesome. But I can tell you, because I was supposed to. I didn't get to introduce myself on Friday night at the Kinsman dinner, or me and Bryce had come up with a plan that I was going to say the Three Down Greencast, also sponsored by Lucky Bastard, because they were a big sponsor too, so I wouldn't really run afoul of anybody. But I can tell you, the double vodka sodas with the limes that night tasted real good.
Fair enough, yeah. And I will say, I did finally get a bottle of the Lucky Bastard gin.
Yes.
I'm not a huge gin guy. It is among my favorite gins, but that's not necessarily a high bar. So
I am a gin guy.
Yeah, I know you are.
Among my favorites.
Yeah,
yes.
I can drink it, and that's for me saying that is a very high praise of a gin. So if you like gin, you will like it. Is basically what I'm saying.
It was even funny to one last Bryce story, as I seem to have a bro crush on this man now. He looked at me. He's like, on the Friday, he's like, how have you not been back by the distiller to pick up your bottle yet? And I'm like, dude, it was like that, like seagull taking a breath and then yelling meme. It was like, let me tell you about my week. So I am hoping to swing by tomorrow after helping fix the Nutana ice for the sheets that weren't used.
For me, from the Nokomis Craft Ales Company, probably one of the OG beers we had like on one of the very first podcasts, maybe even the first one if I remember correctly. And is the Nokomis Pale Ale, just kind of like a toned down version of the IPA. A little bit hoppy, but kind of smooth as well. So.
We always seem to forget about Nokomis, but it's always so good. And actually, I did notice while watching the Tankard that we have something similar with highly successful curlers and former provincial champions Kelly Knapp. Just like our Saskatoon men's team was sponsored by both Nokomis and Pile of Bones, so are they.
Absolutely.
That's about where the similarities end.
Their name is on a can, ours is not. So,
and actually, so the Thursday, we had a couple open bar events that actually behaved myself.
Wow!
If you want to see,
that's the most shocking news I've ever heard. Actually,
right? Okay, that shows how busy I knew my week was going to be. That I showed up we were at the club on Sunday. We were doing a volunteer appreciation thing, so we brought in pizza for everybody and had an open bar. And so 016 was sponsoring, so that was primarily what was there. So literally, when I walked up to the cooler, they said, "Hey, John, you like that fancy stuff. Why don't you drink it?" And there was
that fancy stuff.
Literally, there was about 6 cans of the Nap IPA and 6 more cans of the white IPA. And this is how busy my week was. I was like, I'll have like 2, I guess. That's the most painful part about this all.
Yeah.
So,
Someone else who's also going to have a busy week is Saskatchewan Roughriders general manager Jeremy O'Day and the rest of the coaching staff.
Yes.
As the Ed Hervey negotiation official you can talk to people window is open. And some information starting to trickle out. Not a ton yet, but we do have some things we can go through. So the Riders, of course, had a busy week leading up to it, which kind of surprised me a little bit because we kind of felt, well, maybe they were kind of at the point where, okay, they've signed their guys. They'll probably go from there.
Yes.
They obviously proved us wrong. They got the rest of the coaching staff in place, and it seems now they've decided to sort of act on who they think they absolutely need to re-sign. And rolling through them, there's only one that will kind of stick on a little bit because it's kind of a situation. But I mean, they re-signed Brett Lawther, 3 years, obviously. I think we can all agree that once you find a kicker and he works for your team, you just basically keep him until he can no longer kick the football. That's pretty much the way it works now. Except for the Argos, weirdly, who are deciding now that he's good to get rid of Boris Beatty. But anyway.
Yeah. Trust me, as a team that has lacked dependable kicking and had to bring Sergio back in 4 different times, yes.
Logan Ferland back, solid there. Whether he starts or not going forward, who knows, but you need offensive line depth. That, of course, also includes Philip Blake, who was hurt a lot last year, so that is, of course, unfortunate. So hopefully he can stay healthy next year, and I think that'll help the offensive line extensively. Of course, then... Nelson Lacombo resigns. That was good. De Beer signs. That's good. Lanier resigns. That's good. Sean Bain Jr., kind of the big sort of surprise signing last year that no one really knew a lot about. He's back. That's the solid signing as well. Roland Mulligan, of course, who also got hurt late last year, lost on defense. That was a big loss, but he's good and he's back. So I think they've made the moves that you can look at all those and say, yeah, you know what? Despite, the issues from the team last year, there's going to be a lot of change. There's still enough talent that was worth bringing back, and those were definitely a number of those guys.
Oh, certainly. I like, there's those resignings I like.
The weird question mark that I think a lot of us have was that not only did they re-sign Mason Fine, but they did so for 2 years, and Jeremy O'Day has basically said they picked Mason Fine over Jake Delagalla.
I don't get it.
Me neither.
And again,
I'm not sitting here and saying that I don't necessarily think either of them is the quarterback of the future for this team.
No.
But I thought it was pretty obvious which one was better than the other last year. And I know Jake has some agency in this as well, and he's welcome to do what he wishes, but the way Jeremy O'Day said it, at least it sounded like they preferred Mason Fine. Which
I don't get. Mm-hmm. Because you literally, Mason Fine, I get it, he lost his job because of injury, but nobody was clamoring for Mason Fine at all. I would love to hear the thoughts of, much smarter than us, Dan Plaster on this, because maybe he says something in Fine or something.
Conversations we had, he was also quite surprised, but he doesn't really like Jake Delagalla either. So
that's fair.
He was in the wipe the slate clean category, we'll say. So.
Right. But it's still, like, Jake Delagalla, to me, at least gave the Riders a chance to win. I mean, he led them to a win on Labor Day. Like, yes, he has his own mistakes, and he's young, and he's may not be the quarterback of the future, but Mason Fine didn't give them a chance to win.
No.
So that's why I'm shocked that I simply don't get it, right? Unless the thought process being that Mason Fine is going to come probably a lot cheaper than Jake Delagalla.
Maybe, but I mean, Jake's options are drawing up pretty quick right now, so.
Yeah, there's not where does he go? Calgary? BC? Like, that's about it. Yeah, that was my only thought, was like, okay, well, maybe, Jake's started some games. He's probably going to get some guaranteed money, while Mason Fine is probably like, hey, here's a 2-year deal that also we can release you at any time if we find somebody that actually can win us a football game. But
yeah, and I think it's a 2-year thing that really sticks out to me more than anything. Like, I understand that CFL contracts aren't worth the paper they're printed on, unless you're Chris Jones giving Taylor Cornelius $100,000 guaranteed. There's still sort of the principle behind giving a guy a 2-year deal is, okay, we believe in you this year and next.
But,
like,
okay.
And the guy's been here for so long that I would say, okay, like, he hasn't really shown it yet, so I would have at most given him 1 year and made him earn it in camp. Even I know they can still cut him this year if he sucks in camp, But there was still sort of the weird thought of the 2-year deal, which didn't make sense to me.
But on the same note, you brought up Taylor Cornelius, a guy that showed flashes of actually being a decent CFL quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get why you wouldn't look at him as a guy to bring in. Right?
I don't know if he fits with what they can do with Trevor Harris. Because you want your backup, not necessarily to be a clone of your starting quarterback, but that you don't have to make significant changes to your offense to make it work.
But, I mean, you can't hear the ducks quack whenever he throws a deep ball. And this is just me making an observation. Like, Mason Fine Taylor Cornelius, we all thought he was going to be good because of that effortless flick of the wrist deep ball he was able to throw, right? So, to me, I thought, like, okay.
Yeah, but he's an on-the-run quarterback. Trevor Harris isn't, right? So...
Right, which I get. Like, I'm with you. You have to have a quarterback that fits your system. But, I mean, you look at what Winnipeg's doing now with Chris Streveler and the overrated Zach Collaros.
Well, I mean, clearly Winnipeg's admitted that Collaros isn't enough to get them over the hump. But anyway.
Ha! Weird!
Yeah. At the expense, perhaps, of Brady Oliveira and Dalton Schoen.
Yeah. You basically said, we had the best running back in the CFL this year, and we're going to bring in a backup quarterback because, we trust our MOP quarterback that much. And my goodness.
Yeah, and speaking of running backs, there are many on the market this year. Seems
yes.
Just about every starting running back from last season is on the market, at least any of them of significance.
Yes.
And so, of course, that's led to a lot of discussion on terms of where they may land because they are some of the more marquee names on the market available this year. And there seems to be a lot of clamoring from people around the Saskatchewan Roughriders, not the team itself. We don't know what they're thinking exactly, but around fans and some other people about signing any one of these guys, be that Brady Oliveira, AJ Ouellette, Jamal Morrow, obviously, William Stanback, Kadeem Carey. They're all out there. And it seems like there's at least one person out there claiming to sign at least each one of these guys. Not all of them obviously on the same roster, but there's someone in favor of all of them.
Yeah.
And I just don't get it. How in the year 2024 are we still deciding that spending big money on a running back is a good idea? There's only one team in the CFL that I think could maybe consider it, and that's the BC Lions, because that's literally all they're missing. Everyone else... Yeah. Like, if you're a team like the Saskatchewan Roughriders who have to make significant changes to this roster this year because they've been terrible for 2 straight falls, you don't need to spend money on a running back.
Well, especially somebody that's... And the more I've thought about this, the only caveat I would say to that is if you can get Brady Oliveira and identify the other position that you're going to make American. Like, because Oliveira almost becomes a 2-for-1, right? If you know that you're going with Brady Oliveira, you can then say, okay, we're now going to sign an extra American to play offensive line or wide receiver or something like that. Another position on the field that you're like, okay, Brady allows us to bring in both of these guys and go Canadian at running back, which is essentially what Winnipeg has done since signing Trevor Harris, right? They've had more flexibility to be able to get out Dalton Schoen, Kenny Lawler, all these guys, right? So if you're going to spend, I get it, you shouldn't spend as much as they're probably going to have to get Brady Oliveira. But all the other ones to me are just interchangeable. Right?
Yeah. AJ Ouellette is the only other one that I would say has any discernible skill compared to the others. I mean, if you're out there signing William Stanback, like, what are you doing? If you're signing Kadeem Carey, what are you doing?
Right. But
frankly,
I mean, if you're getting those guys for $100,000 plus bonuses, it's not terrible, but
I mean, you can sign, any of the thousands of players out of the United States this year. We already got Frankie Hickson. I mean,
right.
Because to me, like, generally speaking, your running game isn't so much in the talent in the running back. It's a system that works together that figures it out. And there's no, like, Derek Taylor, who we've talked about on this program, had the great stats of, sort of the way, teams have sort of had the same success with different guys. I mean, he had the stats year over year change. Hamilton 2022 with their 2 guys, 4.7 yards per carry. 2023 with Butler, 4.8 yards per carry. BC 2022 with Butler, 4.9 yards per carry. With Mizzle last year, 4.8 yards per carry. And here's the big one. Winnipeg 2021, Andrew Harris, 5.3 yards per carry. 2022, Brady Oliveira, 5.1 yards per carry. All of this production was easily replaced without breaking the bank.
Now, the only reason and I'm not even talking about...
And if you want to get into it even more, just last season, the Calgary Stampeders, Mills, 5.3 yards per carry, Kadeem Carey, 5.3 yards per carry, both with, give or take 100 carries each.
Well, and it's funny. The reason I'm most high and I say that you should get Brady Oliveira is not because of the rushing. It's because the guy can also catch the ball to the backfield. He's explosive and he can block.
Yeah.
Right?
And I mean, I get the blocking thing, and that's why I understand in the CFL, like, you need your cowbell running back to be able to do that, because this is not the NFL with the large rosters. This is not the NCAA with unlimited rosters, where you bring in that blocking specialist on the turnover down to make it work, right? Mm-hmm. But at that same token, there is absolutely no reason why then, if everyone's saying, well, you need a guy who can block, then okay, then sign the guys out of college who are doing the blocking. Because if they were good enough to get to the NCAA, especially the higher levels of NCAA, because a very small percentage of American high school players make it to the NCAA.
Yes.
So if they make it to the NCAA, and even if they are just a third down blocking back, I bet you they can still run the football. Otherwise, they would not have been in the freaking NCAA.
No, and that's exactly it, right? Guys know how to block, but it's funny. You still see guys in the league that aren't necessarily great at blocking. The only other case I will make for spending a bit more on Oliveira is he's also the youngest out of all these names we've mentioned.
Yeah.
So you can justify it to me, and I can support it if you spend more money on Brady Oliveira, because of literally, it's funny, I've mentioned all the reasons and not mentioned, his rushing yards. But to me, if you're spending on any one of the other guys, like that's poor roster management.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, you want to, because then the option came up. It was basically Justin Dunk was out with the information again this past week that in, a couple of years ago, the Calgary Stampeders gave Kadeem Carey $280,000, making him the highest paid American running back. And you can't tell me over the last couple of years an extra, at least $100K wouldn't have been able to help that receiving core to make them more than just barely a playoff team?
Oh, certainly.
That's what it comes down to. I'm not saying cheap out and always sign guys at the minimum, but if you're paying a guy, $250 versus when you could be paying a couple of guys $150 and getting the same production, but you're able to spread some money out, why not?
Well, and that's it. To me, I think if you can spend on Brady, you go get him, because again of the roster flexibility and all that kind of stuff.
Maybe. I mean, you probably need a backup behind him, and then is there anyone you trust to do that? I don't know.
That's exactly it, with Winnipeg re-signing Johnny Augustine and maybe rolling with Johnny Augustine in his 5 yards per carry, right? Mm-hmm. The next one I would sign, if you told me they signed AJ Ouellette for 6 figures, I'm okay with that. If we're talking 100, 125,
uh-huh.
Because guy's got CFL experience, he's got championship pedigree, he's a guy that Corey Mace knows, right? And it's just, he's a guy.
It'll come down to the dollars for sure. But if they go over the 200 mark, I'll be like, no, there's no point in this.
But that's it. If you're getting AJ Ouellette for $150 a year plus all the other secret money that they give these guys, that's fine. But if you can't get Brady or AJ, you cannot convince me that Kareem DeCarry or William Stanback is a better option than literally anybody.
I was just going to say, if you held me hostage and said, we're not setting you free until the Saskatchewan Roughriders have to sign one of these guys, I would say then, okay, then just re-sign Jamal Morrow.
Yes. The system is, he's been here before. He's probably going to be the cheapest out of all of them, because he had a great season, then a down season. It's almost like they changed offensive coordinators or something like that. So I'm with you. To me, it's if you can't get Brady or AJ, you're wasting money if you're bringing in one of those other guys. I don't see the appeal. I don't see the making sense of it, and it allows you to upgrade the team in other places, and a team that, again, needs to be upgraded in other places. So to me, you spend on Brady, you spend on AJ, you bring back Jamal, or you don't worry with Stanback or Carey.
Yeah, because we've talked about, because clearly last year, there's still holes in this roster that need to be filled. Corey Mace is probably going to want to redo a defense that in a number of spots kind of gave up last year.
Yep.
So that's going to be a thing they're going to look at. Obviously, the offense is still going to need some work, and Mark Mueller's going to want to mold that in his look. So to me, it's not a priority to spend right now.
No.
And that's pretty much, to me, what it comes down to is, out of any of these guys, it's like we're basically back to 2012 in a lot of ways. And
Yes.
the team is not quite in as dire straits as they were coming out of 2011, but it's still a bit of the same field. And if you remember 2012, they came in with, I think, 5 guys at running back. I think Brandon West was the only one that had any sort of recognition to him.
Yep.
I think he was on that roster. Anyway, there was one guy with a little bit of CFL experience. No one else had any. A guy named Corey Sheets with 4th on the depth chart, behind a guy who was puking on the field on the first day. So remember that probably the best running back for this team in the last 15 years no one thought was actually going to make the roster on the first day of camp back in 2012.
Well, until he absolutely balled out in the preseason, and that's why I hope they don't spend money there.
No,
like again, unless you can get Brady or a decent
I would still argue I wouldn't, but that's me.
I know, but if you can't just throw the money at Brady without a plan.
Yeah.
Right? To me, you throw the money at Brady so you can go, okay, we've got another receiver we like. We're going to go American at this spot. We're going to go, there's an offensive lineman we can go out and get because we're going to go American at this spot, right? So you can't just throw the money at Brady Oliveira and not have the plan. And that's why Winnipeg has been successful since bringing in Andrew Harris, and offensively has not been because, Harris is good, going in the Hall of Fame. Brady's good. He loves dogs. I want him to stay in Winnipeg largely because he loves dogs. But it has allowed them to go out and re-sign Kenny Lawler and Dalton Schoen and play these guys, even though they haven't re-signed Schoen. And I'm guessing he's probably the one that walks compared to Oliveira. So you're right. You're just like for our 7 listeners, if you're single, your running back might be out there.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.